blindly following and trusting the system. And this one was the most difficult one for me because growing up, most of us, myself included, are always told that if you want to become successful, go to school, get good grades, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder. For me, it was go to school, get good grades, get into medical school, become a doctor. I know you've heard similar stories before.
Yeah.
That was all that I was told. Since I was like a little baby, my parents would tell everybody, Jaspreet is going to become a doctor. He's going to go out and do medicine, this and that. And that's what I was always told. And I was not really against it because I wanted to be successful. I saw how hard my parents worked since I was a kid. I always wanted to give back. And I always assumed that, okay, if I got good grades, I'll get into a good medical school. And if I do good in medical school, I'll be able to get a good job as a doctor. And if I get a good job as a doctor, I'll be able to make more money. I thought it was all just linearly correlated.
Yeah.
Your grades, your income, your grades, your success. That was one of the reasons why growing up, anything that was not medical or academic related, it was completely discouraged. And sometimes I think it's very difficult for someone to understand what does it mean that, like, you know, your parents really wanted you to be a doctor, because it wasn't like an option. Like this was the only option. And I think the best example that I can give of that was when I was in 8th grade. I was like, 12 years old. My parents got me a tutor, not for the English class that I was on the verge of failing, not for the other stuff that I was studying for in 8th grade, but for the medical college admission test. The test you take in college to get into medical school, my parents got me a tutor for when I was in 12th grade. We didn't spend money on a lot of things. The only thing that parents were willing to spend money on were things related to academics to get me into medical school. And so here I am in 12th grade. I have an MCAT tutor coming to my house, and he's like, wait, this is the kid that I'm teaching about medical school to get him into medical school. And like, that's how strict it was in my house. So I was checking all the boxes. I was doing good in school. I was studying hard. I was getting good grades. But then along the way, I realized that something wasn't adding up. When I was in high school, I was working at Indian weddings. I was playing a drum called the dole. And I got to meet a lot of the local Indian DJs that work at Indian weddings. And we became friends. And they would say, you have a lot of friends in high school. How about we start hosting teen parties in high school? Now, I couldn't tell my parents this because, again, anything that's not, medicine related, going to get me into medical school, I can't tell them. So I would do this all on the side. Even going to work at weddings, I had to kind of keep it all secret. And I was like, okay, let's do it. It was fun for me. So I was 16 years old and I started hosting these teen parties at a local restaurant that just opened up, and they wanted some exposure. So they let us do it there for free. And it was fun. But then I was like, I know this is a hobby. I'm going to go to college and I'm going to become a doctor, and this is all going to become history. Well, I go to college. I'm 17. I don't know what to expect because my parents didn't go to university here. And I think that everybody goes to college. They spend their Friday nights in the chemistry lab. They all want to become this big thing and they want to spend all their time studying in college. And I get there and everybody is partying, drinking, blowing money they don't have on all this stuff. Like, I don't party, I don't drink, I never drank, I didn't smoke. So for me, it was like a big shock. And I was like, this is weird. Like, this is not what I expected, but I still need something to do on Friday nights. So that entrepreneur side of my brain kicked in again. It was like, let's bring this party business back to college because that's all I knew. So I was like, okay. So I'm 17. I start knocking on the doors of all the clubs, venues, bars, restaurants, asking them if I can host party here. And again, I'm not a party person. I don't drink, I don't smoke, but this was the only hustle that I knew. And, I just didn't know much else. So eventually I found a club that would work with me, and they didn't want to charge me anything. They will let me work on essentially a commission basis that they'll take a percentage of the revenue that I bring in. And I said, okay, it doesn't cost me any money because I didn't have a lot of money. I started hosting these parties, but I still knew that this was just a hobby, something I'm doing because I was bored on weekends. Then I started studying to go into medical school. And this is where things really shifted because I had some cash saved up in the bank. And now this is like the bottom of the 2008 crash, because I was in high school when the 2008 crash happened. Around 2012 was when I was studying for the MCAT. So real estate prices are at rock bottom and the markets are still really shaky. And I'm starting to study for the MCAT, and I am bored out of my mind trying to study for this because I just wasn't very passionate about it. And so during my breaks, I would read business books and I would go on the Yahoo Finance and I would study what's going on in the markets just for fun. And I kept hearing about how real estate is at rock bottom on the news. And the business books that I read always said that wealthy people invested in real estate. I had no idea what that meant. I didn't know any real estate investors. I didn't know what real estate investing was. I didn't have investor people in my family, so I didn't know what that meant. So I was like, well, if wealthy people invest in real estate, maybe I should invest in real estate. So I brought up the idea to my dad. I was like, Dad, I want to invest in real estate. He's like, shut up. You're stupid. Go study and become a doctor. You can worry about all this other stuff after you become a doctor. And I was like, okay. Now, I just want to say, I love my dad to death. My parents, this was just all they knew. They didn't have that financial education. But in the back of my mind, I'm always like, okay, what can I do? Maybe I don't got to tell my parents. I'll just do something else. I had a little bit of cash saved up in the bank from the party business that I was running. So I started looking at rental properties to buy. And I found this small condo on sale for $8,400. That was the price of the condo.
That's wow.
And that same condo a few years prior had sold for $150,000. So the 2008 crash really decimated the real estate market in Michigan because Ford, GM, Chrysler were just hit so hard. And so I was like, okay, well, this is not a bad price. I can afford this. So I made an offer for $4,000 and it was in foreclosure. The bank countered with $7,000. And then I said, how about we settle at $6,000? And we were trying to go back and forth. And then they said, well, we have another offer on the table. I didn't want to lose this deal because I'd already looked at a few. So I was like, okay, well, I'll make an offer for $8,000. So it was a bidding war. The other person offered less than $8,000. So I got the condo. So I bought the condo for $8,000, but a little bit of work into it. It was in pretty good shape. And I got it rented out for $600 a month. Now I'm 19 years old and I had no idea what I was doing. But all of a sudden, once I got it a little bit figured out, I was like, wait, this condo is paying me every single month and I don't have to go and host a party. I don't got to go to work. I was working at Auntie Anne's Pretzels a little bit before that. I was like, I don't got to flip pretzels. I don't got to host this party. I don't got to work at a wedding and it's paying me. Something doesn't make sense. Like, how come I was never told about this? Like I was doing good in school. Like I thought I was like smart. I thought I knew what I was doing. Turns out that there's a whole world of financial education that we're never taught. So now the traditional system is go to school, study hard, get good grades, get a good job, climb the corporate ladder. And now I'm starting to realize, wait, there's a different system here that none of us are ever taught, where the goal isn't to just get a job and climb the corporate ladder. What wealthy people are doing is they're working to own the corporate ladder. And I was like, I didn't even know that you could do that. Because now if you can own investments, if you can own assets, you own things that are going to be paying you without you having to physically work. And this is what wealthy people are working for. Yet none of us are ever taught this. None of us are ever taught in school, how do you manage money? None of us are ever taught, how do you invest your money? None of us are ever taught, how do you build wealth? None of us are ever taught, how do you generate passive income? Yet wealthy people are teaching their kids this, and they're able to figure it out because they have that education. But for the majority of us, we're not taught this unless you're willing to go out of your way. Now, YouTube has made it a lot more accessible, thank God.
Yeah.
But before YouTube, you had to go out of your way to read books and take classes. And it's tough. It's much harder to read a 300-page book than it is to watch a 10-minute YouTube video.
Yeah, definitely.
So that was a big turning factor for me because that's when I started to realize that there's something different that you can do.